The Winona Sports Network welcomes you to Thunder Talk. Thanks to Arcadia Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Get all the dirt from Mississippi Thunder Speedway. Direct from Dan Bailey.
Hey, race fans, welcome to another edition of Thunder Talk on the Winona Sports Network, 99.3 FM, and streaming live via WinonaRadio.com. I'm Dan Bailey. This is episode 345. Can you believe it? Thank you very much for tuning in for another quick ride with Thunder Talk. Well, you know, we had some really exciting races last Friday night, and we had some surprises as well. One of the surprises was when a stark white modified rolled out onto the track with the number 0 on it, and everybody thought, oh my goodness, is this who I think it is? And it was. Les Duellman, behind the wheel of one of his own Dirt-Duelers, out having some fun at Mississippi Thunder Speedway last Friday night, so I thought it would be perfect to invite Les to join us for this week's edition of Thunder Talk. Les, how you doing tonight?
I am good, Dan. Did you just say 345 episodes? That's amazing.
I did indeed. Thank you very much. And you are part of episode 345. So what was the decision-making that went into getting you out onto the track behind the wheel last Friday night?
Well, this is a car we put together last year. I ran one night at the Jamboree before it rained out. Then we also took it up to the Topless in Ogilvie. It's a USRA B mod. I've been racing a Winona Midwest mod for the Runkle family, that memorial car, the 23KR, for about 6 years now, I think. And we just wanted a B mod out here so we could do some development work. Maybe it's basically an engineering car. Greg Jensen was good enough to loan us his old A-mod chassis, and we put together a B-mod last fall, and we're coming back out and just to play and work on development.
All right, so who was the mastermind behind the number last week? The number 0 and then LD. Did that stand for Les Duellman, or was it literally old?
Well, who else can put together their traditional number 0 and their initials and come up with that? But yeah, I turned 60 last summer, and back in April, I had this stupid, silly thought in the middle of the night, and thought, well, why not try to do something silly? And came up with that, and most people get it right away, and a few don't, but I just thought it was just something humorous to stick out there.
So for those folks who have been going to the races in the area, and specifically in the Fountain City area, they know your backstory. But maybe we've got some new listeners either on the radio or through the YouTube channel. So let's reintroduce you. As you said, you've been racing for a while as you turned 60 last year. Clarify this for me. You know, I've heard the stories of you racing a late model when you were 13, I think. And a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about the Youth Brigade coming in with this new EcoMod series. So when did you get started, and where does your racing start? And were you 13 or were you younger than 13?
I was 13, but I was in a street stock for 2 years.
Okay.
So we were, and then we did switch to a late model so this is all the way back in 1977.
Yeah.
So before most of my competitors now were born, but yeah. So we switched. I did 2 years in street stock, and then a bunch of years in a late model, starting at age 15, and we kind of went from there. I raced for 8 years around here. Went to college, and then went to work out in Detroit for a few years. Kind of took some time off, did some engineering work in racing and passenger cars. And then came back here and was just on the wrecker at Fountain City doing the wrecker for Elmer's. And we, I don't know, you just can't, it's one of those things where you get singed by being too close to the fire. And I got asked to drive a car, did well, and then all of a sudden I'm driving full-time, and then I'm buying his equipment. And then before you know it, we need a new car, and I start building my own race cars.
And that was the genesis of
and it just kind of snowballed.
Right?
Yeah, the Dirt-Dueler, play on my name, but yeah, we did that. We just did a couple of them, and we've never made it a big deal. It's just something that we play around with. We'll build 5 to 10 cars a year, but we've had cars win everywhere from East Bay in Tampa, Florida, all the way out to Montana, and so it's fun. It's just kind of a fun hobby. I guess a hobby business. Not making a living doing it, but we have a lot of fun, and we develop our own cars. And it's kind of my hand in engineering.
I do want to talk about those Dirt-Dueler chassis that people are racing and winning with. But first, let's talk about that whole youth thing. You know, right now there's this big insurgent of youngsters who are racing and winning, actually. You know, we've got 11-year-old Mike and Iverson out there. We've got 13-year-old Mason Stockhausen who's winning in an Eco-Mod. We've heard stories of late model racers at young age. When you were 11, 12, 13, I'm sure you thought that it was awesome. Now that you're your current age and you see these youngsters, are you thinking to yourself, yep, been there, done that? Or do you look at it from a different angle now?
No, when I was doing it, there was only just a handful of us, 3-4 of us in the whole country racing, as young teenagers, and we've helped mentor a few guys, through our B-mods, guys like Parker Hale and his brother Jackson, that have been in our cars as teenagers and, helped a few of those guys get going. And I'm always there for, advice. I don't mind, and I think it's cool. We got Mike and Iverson's car right in the shop right now. He's in one of our Dirt-Dueler Eco-Mods. Him and Wally Olson are the two drivers in our cars. So we got Mike in with a bunch of racing experience, and Wally that's complete rookie, and they're both making improvements, and we're trying to get them both going faster. And it's always fun, working with the young guys. I have no problem with that. I kind of like it, actually.
And then at the other end of the spectrum, you have, racers who have been successful for years, and they're piloting your chassis. So let's talk about the Dirt-Duelers. And I know that you, coming from your engineering background and as a chassis developer, you could get us deep into into the discussion. But for just a general race fan, how could someone understand the difference between all these chassis? I mean, it's a big topic in the dirt world, or in any racing world, right? It's a big topic. What chassis is this driver using and winning with, and what are the differences? So, without getting too deep down that engineering rabbit hole and without giving away any secrets, what is it that makes Dirt-Duelers different than all the other chassis?
Yeah, everybody's got their own take on things, but I think our identifying characteristic is our front clip. Most modifieds are out here with a Chevelle chassis. Most super stocks are out there with a Camaro chassis for a front stub. We run a mid-70s, late 70s mid-size Ford Torino Thunderbird style chassis. It has a front suspension geometry that's more akin to a late model in terms of its configuration. It might be a little bit heavier than, say, the new Chevelles and stuff that are brand new from AFCO, but we feel that there's some benefit to the geometry on those cars, and we kind of stick with them, and it's our trademark. Some people are afraid of it, others embrace it, and some are Ford crazy, so they think that's a cool thing. But I don't do it because it's Ford. I do it because it's like my original Rayburn late models that revolutionized late model racing.
I was actually going to broach that subject next because, as you mentioned, you kind of briefly whizzed past it when you were talking about your past. You took a break from racing and went literally into the passenger car and Ford racing engineering circle. So I didn't know if you were using those stubs because you were a Ford fanatic based on your history, or you just like the way that chassis lines up and the geometry of it all. So that is interesting that this is what you've decided, and you think there's something good about it.
Yeah, and right now we're working on this B-Mod thing, and we're going to come back with the A-Mod. My son Brandon's working on it. He's driving his car. He just got done with about 5 weeks here, or 6 weeks of paternity leave. So him and his wife just had a little baby boy. So we have a maybe future Duellman racer coming again in Ezra. But Brandon got back out last Saturday at Deer Creek. I think we're both planning on being held here at Fountain City Friday night, weather permitting, which this year has been a challenge. But so we're trying to get the modifieds. We spent the last couple of years with the super stock because that was Brandon's car, and it kind of stunk. Traveling, not being able to race at home because the class wasn't being run here. But we did well enough, and Brandon did extremely well, and we had a couple cars that won multiple specials last fall, including the Winona 100. And this year, I think we've got about 6, 7, 8 guys, I think, that have won with super stocks, a couple of them with their brand new cars. And so we've been consistently up front with them. And now, like I said, we're back to, you always kind of go around in circles, and I'm trying to work on the B-Mod stuff right now with my own deal. Me working on it as the engineer. Maybe not the greatest driver anymore. It's just because of age, but I can get the job done. I've still been winning with the 23 car up north, so it's still fun to me, and if I'm competitive, I'll stay sticking with it. But like I said, it's mostly the engineering challenge and developing our own stuff.
Well, you're getting the job done. I mean, last Friday night, you rolled out of the hauler and picked up a heat race win. Do you still get that smile on your face when you see that checkered flag and you're out front?
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's still fun. And then you're always racing against these guys, and Hunter Kennedy has been on a hot streak, and so it felt pretty good, that was like, well, we're onto something. We're doing a setup right now that's a little different than the guys, that are running my cars out here. But it's something we brought over from the things that we're doing in the AMOD. So it's just something we wanted to try, and it feels pretty good. So we'll give it another shot Friday night. And we ran pretty good in the beginning of the feature, but we had the motor kind of was having some issues and not liking something as it got warm. So it kind of lost power and lost spots each restart. That was kind of a bummer, but we had a good car at the beginning, and I guess we'll come back and try it again Friday.
And we're actually recording this edition of Thunder Talk in the middle of the week. It's Wednesday night, actually, now that you and I are talking here, and you've just come back into town from a testing session. So as a driver who's had a long, successful career, and as an engineer who is developing these race cars, these Dirt-Dueler chassis, where do you get the most enjoyment? Do you get the enjoyment when you get to strap into the car and go battle the competition for a checkered flag? Or do you get the enjoyment when you strap into the car and you're doing these testing sessions because you're figuring out what's going to make your car even better?
The short answer is just a straight up yes. I like both. I've always liked the engineering aspect of it. From way back, I always liked the challenge of figuring it out. Dirt's much more challenging that way because the track's changing constantly, and it's just fun figuring out the puzzle. I mean, we got all these moving pieces and moving racetrack, and dirt racing is just a blast that way.
So for an individual who has never been to a test session, it can be a mind bender, right? I mean, it's very methodical, but it's kind of doing the same thing over and over and over with just micro changes, right?
Yeah, we go out there. We kind of went with a plan. So we've got the 6 or 7 we wanted to try today. We went up to Rice Lake Speedway. We had 2 super stocks, one brand new that hasn't been on the racetrack yet with Jason Hobble, and then the other one came down from Ashland, and that's Steve Stewart. And he's got 5 nights out. I think he's got 2 wins and 2 seconds and leading the points up at ABC. So he's doing really well, but he wanted to try, just get out there and try some things. So we're giving them things, guys, a couple of things to try to feel out their cars, and then we are also working on. I was actually driving Brandon's AMOD today, trying out different things based on his feedback last weekend and from a month ago, and trying to get that car better. So we were keep plugging away, and like you said, you go there with a plan. You try something. Sometimes you run into something. You kind of change the plan a little bit, but you try to still hit all those, like I said, in our case today, 6 or 7 things that we wanted to try.
So you have mentioned that your Dirt-Duelers are being utilized in A-Mod racing, B-Mod racing, super stock racing, but anyone who's a deep race fan knows that those are 3 completely different race cars. So when you, as the engineer, designer, developer of Dirt-Dueler chassis, learns one thing on one of those cars, let's say, for example, on a Superstock, something's working well, can that information that you gather on the Superstock test session be transferred to the other cars, or do you have to almost recreate the scenario with the other chassis and then see how to figure out whatever it is that you're trying to fix or improve?
Yeah, it's kind of complicated, but usually it's a trickle down. The modifieds changed 5, 6, 8, 10 years ago from the late model racing. The late model, there's more technology, more money there. And then we kind of pushed it into the B-Mod racing, and we were quite successful out here for a number of years in doing things with a 3-link that normally were being done with a more simple rear suspension that were being done with the complicated suspensions that come from the A-Mod. But you always have to kind of, you say, okay, I think this is working, and so we have to kind of try the configuration and adapt. So you definitely are adapting. And the Superstock was just a straight up, let's do what we're doing in the B-Mods. Nobody's doing that in the super stocks. Everybody's running around flat like it's 1993, and we're like, let's type the thing up and chase it. And I mean, it wasn't automatic. I mean, Jeff Brower had a couple of our cars, and one thing he said, God, when you guys came out with that thing, you were junk. And I said, yeah, I know, but I said after a month, 6 weeks of working with it, we were fast.
And that has got to be a extremely satisfying feeling, knowing that you beat whatever wasn't working initially and have turned it into a machine that people want and are actually winning with, right?
Yeah, that is the really rewarding part, to see guys racing and winning in your stuff. I mean, one of the days or evenings I ever had, it wasn't even at a racetrack. We were at a wedding reception, Brandon and I were, and last fall during the Minnesota 100, and Dylan Nelson goes out and wins the Minnesota 100 with our car. And we had Dave Moss driving Brandon's car, and he drove that car from 15th up to 5th. So we put 2 in the top 5. To have Dylan, a really great young man from up north in the Brainerd area, to go out there and win the biggest race of the year in Minnesota with one of your cars is just awesome.
Well, I got to tell you, Les, I have a feeling like we could probably sit here and chat for another hour and a half, about Dirt-Duelers and just racing in general. But it has been a pleasure chatting with you for this length of time. Can you tell us at least, are we going to see you more? Are you going to be behind the wheel some more over at Mississippi Thunder Speedway, or was this just kind of a one-off?
No, we'll be out there this week and probably a few more times this year yet. We had to add the sponsors to the quote old car, 0LD car, and we got to get raceleader.com on there. We're sponsoring. That's my business. It's an online racing and performance parts business, and that we are sponsoring the EcoMod class. So I got to get my own commercial in here, but we'll have that on there, but we'll be back out. It won't look quite so stark white this week. So anyway, but yeah, we're coming back out. It's going to have fun.
Well, I tell you what, it sure looked like you were having fun last week. You got that heat race win. You ran well in the feature as well. Didn't quite get the feature win last Friday night, but you were up there battling. So it's always fun to see you. I mean, you're always at the track, but it's always fun to see you back behind the wheel at the track, and we'll be looking forward to more of that, as you just told us, at Mississippi Thunder Speedway. Les Duellman, driver of the Zero, now the 0LD, the old Dirt-Dueler modified, and also, engineer, owner, developer, producer of Dirt-Dueler race cars. I sure do appreciate you taking some time out of your midweek work to chat with us on this week's edition of Thunder Talk, and can't wait to see you back on the track again this Friday.
Thanks, Dan. It's always wonderful talking with you.
Les Duellman, he'll be at Mississippi Thunder Speedway. I hope you will be as well. As a matter of fact, quick plug here, bring the kids to Mississippi Thunder Speedway. As always, the youngsters 12 and under get into Mississippi Thunder Speedway absolutely free. But this Friday night, August 2nd, Coca-Cola Bottling Company of Winona is presenting Kids Night. And during intermission, there'll be free kids' rides in real, actual race cars. Not going to be at green flag speeds, but we'll get them out on the track, and who knows, maybe one of your youngsters will be able to get a ride in the 0LD Dirt-Dueler Modified. Hope to see you at Mississippi Thunder Speedway.
Tune in next week for all the dirt from Mississippi Thunder Speedway with Thunder Talk on the Winona Sports Network. Thanks to Arcadia Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram.